Hey guys, Hamster Wheel here with a new video, and today I'd like to introduce you to what might be potentially a new video series. You see, over the period of a year or two, I've made gearing guides for the Burning Crusade expansion. But to be fair, those guides are a little dated to say the least. Those videos were very inconsistent, as some guides focused on just green items, some focused on a lot of best in slot items, some were very short and made a WoW model viewer, while some were very long. Basically, it was all over the place, and since gearing guides are one of my favorite videos to make, I decided to make a new guide for each class that has the same format, the same gear level so to say, and basically follows the same pattern. Now these guides will be focused on getting you from crappy greens when you just hit level 70 into some decent gear that will allow you to do respectable damage in dungeons. Hence why I called it Gearing for Dungeoneering. All the items I will recommend will be in the description below this video, including a link to where you can see what quests to do in order to get said item. So with that long intro out of the way, let's delve into the first character we're going to gear up today, and that is a favorite of mine, the Balance Druid. Now this current boomy is looking a little sorry for itself, with crappy gear, not a whole lot of stats, and when we do a DPS test, it pulls out a measly 498.3 DPS. So, let's take this current Balance Druid, work our magic, and there we go. That's much better in terms of gear. Alright, let's check out what items I chose, shall we? So let me open up my character screen right here. And we're going to start off with the headpiece, which is the Magari Ritualist's Horns. This item is a very go-to item, if you ask me, because it's actually better than some of the, or actually most of the stuff you can get in normal dungeons and heroics. So it's probably going to last you all the way up to Crusade when you get the tier 4 helmet or something else. So really great helmet. Unfortunately, it is only for Horde. So if you're a Tauren Druid, get this. If you're Alliance though, I do have an alternative that you can get, which is the Druidic Helmet of Second Sight. So also a great helmet. You know, it's got a bunch of sockets, got a fair amount of spell damage, spell crit, a little bit of MP5 stamina intellect. Overall, just a great helmet too for you to get as a pretty new level 70 Balance Druid. So definitely both of those are good items. Though preferably the Ritualist Horns, I prefer them a little bit more. But having decent gems in this one will also make sure it's a really good item. So there you go, those are the head suggestions. Moving on to the necklace, we got the Torque of the Sethic Prophet, which is a nice little necklace. It's got 18 intellect, 21 spell crit rating, and 19 damage and healing. And it's going to be a staple of this gearing series because, one, it is, you know, it's a pretty good necklace, and two, it's actually fairly easy to get. You get this out of Sethic Halls, but it's not a drop chance of a boss. It's a quest item you can get through completing one simple quest chain, which basically requires you to free one mob right after the first boss. So it's very easily obtainable, and it's a really good item, so I just had to put it in there. Moving on to the shoulders, we got the Spaulders of the Torn Heart. 7 intellect, 8 spirit, 10 stamina, 18 crit rating, and 40 spell damage. Now, the crit rating and the spell damage is basically why I chose this. There's a fair amount of shoulders you can get as a Balance Druid, but these pretty much excel when it comes to gear that is fairly easily obtainable. You know, you're not reliant on, again, drop chances from bosses, and still offers you a lot of offensive stats. That 80 crit rating and 40 spell damage is pretty much on par with some of the stuff that drops in heroics, and sometimes even in raids, like tier 4 raids, so it's definitely worth getting. However, this is part of the Cipher of Damnation quest chain, and I believe that this is not available yet right from the get-going Burning Crusade, so I am going to offer you guys an alternative, and that is the Destroyer's Mantle. It's kind of the mini Spaulders of the Torn Heart because it has very little base stats, but also a fair amount of crit and a lot of spell damage, while the Torn Heart has like 18 crit rating and 40 spell damage. This has 9 crit rating and 35 spell damage. So still a pretty damn good item to have if you cannot get the Torn Heart shoulders yet. Moving on to the cloak, we got the Cloak of Woven Energy. 13 intellect, 6 stamina, and 3 spirit, with 6 crit rating and 29 spell damage. Now that 29 spell damage is basically why I chose this. Boomkins really benefited a lot from a lot of spell damage, so that's why I chose this. It's a really good cloak, and it's also fairly easy to obtain. It's part of a quest chain that you can complete fairly quickly. So definitely a good item, and definitely a item for you to go for your new boomy. Moving on to the chest piece, we got the Auchenai Anchorage Robe. I'm probably not pronouncing that right, but there you go, that's this item. And it has 24 intellect. It has 3 sockets, 2 yellow, 1 red. The bonus gives you 4 spell crit, 23 spell hit rating, which is really nice. You can always have hit, and 28 spell damage. Now, I basically chose this because, one, it's fairly easy to obtain. It takes place in the Outside Crypts, which, yes, it's a dungeon, but again, it's a quest chain, so fairly easy to obtain. Definitely worth getting. And also, those 3 sockets make it very flexible, so you can have a ton of spell damage if that's what you want. If you want to focus spell hit, that's what you can also do. If, let's say, you want to get eventually into tier like raiding and heroic dungeons, and you want some more spell hit, you can swap them out for some spell hit gems. So once again, nice item to have, fairly easy to obtain, definitely a go-to item. The bracers, Shatra wraps, 15 stamina, 15 intellect, 1 red socket, 3 stamina socket bonus, and 21 spell damage and healing. Once again, a nice set of bracers, and as you can see, there's a lot of cloth in this, but then again, you know, there's a lot of really good cloth gear out there. And yes, you might not get as much armor as a Moonkin, but since it's PvE, it doesn't really matter that much. You'd much rather have just really good stats, like a lot of spell damage, a lot of spell crit, and all that stuff, all that jazz. But once again, great item to have for your freshly dinked level 70 Boomy. Takes place in Shadow Labs. Once again, it's part of a quest, but again, you're not reliant on drops, so it's fairly easy to obtain. 1 Shadow Labs run, and you'll pretty much have these, along with another item that I'll get to in a bit. But for now, these are pretty great, and again, the red socket allows you to get a lot of spell damage on these bracers. I mean, right now I have 28 spell damage combined with 18 stamina because of the socket bonus and 15 intellect. So, not too shabby if you ask me. Now for the staff, I'm going to go with the Oranox Ancient Scepter. 45 intellect, 27 stamina, 25 crit rating, and 103 spell damage. 45 intellect, obviously when you're a Boomy, is really nice, gives you more mana, and of course intellect also means you get more spell damage. And, you know, the rest is also pretty nice. A little bit of stamina, a bit of crit rating, and a fair amount of spell damage. Now, this is also part of the Cipher of Damnation quest chain. So if that's not out yet, I have a few alternatives. 2 actually. The first is a pretty standard one, and that is the Battle Mage's Baton. 45 stamina, 31 intellect, 30 spell crit, and 85 spell damage. Pretty nice item to have. Not as good as the Scepter, but fairly easy to obtain, and a pretty good alternative if you can't get this Scepter yet. Now, there's another alternative I'd like to throw in there, and that is the Bringer of Death. Now, from all the items you can get, all the staff items, I'd advise you to get this one, because, well, look at the stats. 32 stamina, 31 intellect, 42 spell crit, and a massive 121 spell damage. So, out of the 3, this is definitely the better one. But the thing is, it's a BOE, as you can see, binds when equipped. So you're going to have to buy this off the auction house. Now, the reason I'm not using this as my main is because I have no idea just how expensive this item will be on the server that you're playing on. So it could either be very cheap, you can bag this for like 20 gold, or it could be really, really expensive, especially if Classic will ever go to the Burning Crusade era, and then it goes live, and then these drop, and they're going to probably go for a lot of money, so... But these are the 2 alternatives, and the main item I'd probably recommend is the Ancient Scepter. It's a fairly long quest chain, but well worth doing, and you can see it gets you a pretty sick item. Now for the Idol, unfortunately for the Idol, there's very little to get out of quests in the Burning Crusade. There is an Idol you can get, but that reduces the cost of Ravage, I think it is. But it's a Feral Idol, so it's not really beneficial to balance Druids. So... if you can, try and get this off the auction house. It increases Moonfire spell damage by 33. So, you know, it's at least something you can put into your gear. So you at least have something in that slot. So, there you go. Trinkets. Vengeance of the Illidari. It's the first one we're going to talk about. 26 spell crit rating. And when you use it, you get 120 spell damage and 220 healing done for 15 seconds with a 1.5 minute cooldown. So it's a really nice trinket, and the great thing is you can get this very early on when you get to Hellfire Peninsula. So definitely worth getting. A lot of crit, fair amount of spell damage when you use it, so definitely something you should get. Next item is going to be the Ancient Crystal Talisman. Now I chose this item because of that passive 26 spell damage and healing. Once again, Boomkins really benefit from a lot of spell damage, so that's why I chose this. And also the bonus... the use is also pretty nice, which is 104 damage and healing. Now, it's less than the Vengeance of the Illidari, but this one lasts for 15 seconds and this one lasts for 20 seconds. So that is definitely something to keep in mind. Yes, the cooldown is a little bit longer, but still 104 spell damage for 20 seconds alongside that 26 passive bonus damage and healing. Pretty nice trinket for druids, if I say so myself. I'm gonna move on to the rings. First one is the Signet of the Violet Tower. 5 intellect, 7 stamina, 29 spell damage and healing, and 2 mana every 5 seconds. I mainly chose this because of that 29 damage and healing, which is very nice for a green ring. It's fairly easy to obtain, and well, there you go. That's pretty much all there is. It's got very little base stats and that MP5, which is meh, but that damage and healing definitely nice and definitely makes it worth getting. Next item is the Evoker's Mark of the Redemption. 15 intellect, 10 spell crit, and again 29 damage and healing. So another nice ring to have. Takes place in Shadowmoon Valley. It's a, it's a fairly long quest chain, but definitely worth getting, because this is kind of on par with what you'll get out of level 70 normal dungeons and maybe even heroics. So definitely worth getting. Now there is one alternative I'd like to throw in there for rings, which is the Band of Dominion, which has 21 spell crit and 28 damage and healing. I'd say this is a little bit better than the Signet of the Violet Tower, because this gives you a fair amount of crit, which is not bad. The problem is, like you can see, it is a BOE item, so once again you're kind of reliant on how cheap or expensive this is on your server. If it's cheap and you see it on the auction house, I'd say definitely bag it. You have an upgrade really quick. If it's fairly expensive, you might want to save that money up for something else, whatever it is. But there you go, that's a nice alternative and something to keep in mind. Gonna move on to the boots, which are the Shadra Jumpers. 25 stamina, 17 intellect, 1 blue and 1 yellow socket, and 29 damage and healing. But, me being a boomy and me wanting spell damage, I just slapped some red gems in there. And with those gems, I have a total of 43 spell damage just on my boots. So that's pretty awesome to get. And again, just like the Shadra wraps, you can get both of these from a quest, or from 2 quests actually. So one quest from this, one quest from this. Both in Shadow Labs, so basically in one run of Shadow Labs you can get both of these, and if you slap some gems in there, that's a very nice addition to your boomkin, so definitely worth getting. Gonna move on to the pants, which are the Haramat's Leggings of the Third Coin. 29 intellect, 2 yellow sockets, 1 red socket, socket bonus of 5 spell damage and healing, 16 spell crit, and 27 spell damage. Pretty nice leggings, fairly easy to obtain. You can get this out of doing one quest in the Mana Tomb, so once again, you're not reliant on drops. It's just complete the quest, and there you go. You got some sweet leggings. If you slap some decent gems in there, as you can see right now, you can actually get some decent spell crit, spell damage, and intellect out of this. So definitely a nice addition to your boomkin. Gonna move on to the belt, which is the Blackwell Belt. 11 intellect, 10 spirit, 10 spell crit, and 32 spell damage and healing. That 32 spell damage and healing for a leather green belt, pretty damn nice if you ask me. So that's the reason why I chose it. Not a super long quest chain either, so fairly easy to get. So yeah, it's definitely a go-to item if you ask me. And last but not least, the gloves, which is 10 stamina, 20 intellect, 6 spirit, 2 blue sockets, a socket bonus of 3 spell crit, 27 damage and healing, and 10 spell penetration. So these are pretty nice gloves, and once again you got those blue sockets in there, which you can choose to either slap some red gems in there for full spell damage, or do this, a little bit of spell damage, a little bit of stamina, and I still managed to pump out 35 spell damage out of these gloves. Combine that with 20 intellect, some stamina, spirit, it's a pretty nice set of gloves. Fairly easy to obtain. All you need to do is the Caverns of Time quest, which will require you to go to Hillsbred Foothills, kill the last boss there, free thrall, and then you get basically these gloves, which are pretty damn nice if you ask me. And as you can see, we had quite a bit of a bump in terms of stats, with much more spell damage, hit rating, and crit rating, while only sacrificing a little bit of mana regen. Now these numbers are nice and all, but how much DPS can we actually do right now? Well, before we upgraded this booby, we did 498.3 DPS. And now we're doing 711 DPS, which is an increase of 42.69%. Not too bad if you ask me, and again, all we did were some quests. We didn't have to invest a ton of money into craftable items or hope a certain item would drop out of a certain dungeon. So I'd say mission accomplished. This boomy is ready to start farming level 70 dungeons and eventually get enough gear to start raiding. Alright guys, that's it for now. I hope you like this new video format, and if you do, I'll be sure to make more of them in the near future. For now though, I want to thank you for watching this video. I'm Hamsterwheel and have a good one.